Are we live? Can you hear me? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I can hear myself.
Mic check.
Fantastic.
I think we're good.
All right. Yeah. So don't call it DevOps. Don, what the hell am I supposed to call it?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and get started. We know by now that we're probably not going to change your minds in the next 30 minutes. So what can you expect from us today? We'll go through some intros. We'll provide and try to defend a definition of DevOps. And then Mike's got a little history lesson prepared for us.
Then we'll talk a little bit about what DevOps definitely is not. Finally, we do have some homework for you, all of you. And yeah, there's probably going to be a meme or two.
Lots of memes. All right, well, first a little bit about us. Mike and I, we've been working together for several years. We've presented together a couple times, and we found we really enjoy doing this kind of thing.
We had the opportunity to speak at DockerCon Barcelona and San Francisco, and we loved it so much, we thought, well, we'll just keep doing this.
We're passionate lifetime learners, and we are absolutely obsessed with operations management.
And we're incredibly grateful to be here today. I can't tell you how fulfilling it is to be here among so many like-minded individuals. My name is Mike No. I started my professional IT career about 19 years ago. It makes me seem kind of ancient. I've spent the last 12, 13 years or so focused on the ops part of DevOps. I am an Army veteran, spent a small time in the Army, and that's where I was really introduced to precision operations management. I got my master's in IT management from Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee in 2016. And like Don said, I'm just absolutely obsessed with process and operations management.
And my name's Don Bauer. I'm DevOps Don on Twitter and LinkedIn. I've been a developer for about 15 years, moved more into an architecture and operations role about 8 years ago, and for the last 6 years I've been a people leader. I'm also a Docker captain and an organizer for DevOps Days Nashville. I'm a husband and a father of 2, and like all people in DevOps, I believe unicorns are real. One little heads up for a talk called Don't Call It DevOps. We're actually going to say DevOps a lot, so just setting the stage for you. So how many of you think it's possible to define DevOps?
Nobody.
I don't see any hands. Okay. Well, that's what we're here to talk about. What exactly is it? How do we know if we're doing it? And these are the questions we're hoping to answer today.
So let's start with a DevOps definition. Excuse me. So DevOps is a collection of applied sciences and theories. It's the culmination of more than 100 years of process and operations management. We have narrowed it down to these 6 tenets as we believe them to be the most important. And they are systems flow, single piece flow, the theory of constraints, quality feedback loops, a culture of improvement through experimentation, and the most important one is collaboration between departments. Oh yeah, these tenets can be applied in virtually any environment for any system. So in that sense, they're universal.
So these tenets all have pretty specific definitions, and each one of these can help you make decisions about how your organization gets work done. What we're talking about here today are some fundamental guidelines for developing and delivering quality products. In a monumental way, these tenets have changed the way that we think about work, and of all of these, the hardest and most important is collaboration.
So how did we come up with this? Where did we get this definition of DevOps? So Confucius tells us that should we wish to define the future, we should study the past. And I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a student of history. So today we're going to take you through a few decades in time and find out where some of these ideas came from.
I really can't stress this enough. We didn't come up with any of these definitions. Like Jonas from the Goal taught us, we simply discovered the geniuses that made these discoveries. Then we studied their successes and their failures, and once we felt like we'd internalized, until we felt like we'd internalized those lessons. At first it was a mere curiosity, but then the effects became apparent and we've given it our full attention. So let's see where it all begins.
In the 1950s, Dr. Taiichi Ohno invented and implemented the Toyota production system, which became the basis for lean manufacturing. Sorry. And which led to the widespread adoption of ideas like single-piece flow, systems flow, collaboration between departments, and quality feedback loops.
Around the mid-'80s, these lean manufacturing ideas gave way to agile development practices. Agile showed us that being flexible is paramount. Is paramount to reacting to the market. Around the same time, Dr. Goldratt published his book for manufacturing titled The Goal. This introduced the theory of constraints and became mandatory reading in most MBA programs.
The first time that we heard DevOps was by Patrick DuBois and Andrew Schaefer at the Agile 2008 conference. A few months later, John Oswald and Paul Hammond gave their talk at the Velocity conference outlining the power of collaboration between dev and ops at Flickr. In 2012, the Continuous Delivery book was published, written by Jez Humble and Dave Farley, which is the seminal book on creating digital assembly lines and delivering quality products to your customers. In 2013, the Phoenix Project was published and changed my life forever.
Yeah, mine too. That's a book I wish I had earlier. Today, Mike and I are just desperately trying to carry on this legacy of time-honored practices and bring them to the masses.
This is Dr. Taiichi Ohno. He was a Japanese industrial engineer hang on, sorry. He was a Japanese industrial engineer and the key architect of the Toyota production system, which revolutionized manufacturing processes around the world. He was promoted to principal industrial engineer in the early 1950s, where he became obsessed with things like reducing waste, improving throughput, and building collaboration between departments. Dr. Ohno was inspired by the works of one W. Edwards Deming, an American mathematician and engineer who used math and statistics to build management practices that Toyota used to build a culture of excellence within their plants.
The Toyota production system was built on the idea of delivering every vehicle as ordered, and some of you might be familiar with that as just-in-time deliveries. Just-in-time was born out of the necessity to reduce WIP, or work in progress, and if you have read the Phoenix Project, you'll be familiar with that term. WIP is the silent killer of any production line. WIP stuck in the system means products aren't being built or shipped, orders are not being fulfilled, payments are not being received. WIP built up in the system is lost time and lost opportunity.
At a manufacturing plant, WIP is kind of obvious to see. It's inventory stacked up in front of the workstations. But in software delivery, it's a little harder to find. It's a little harder to make obvious because it's usually in the form of tickets, right? Completed dev tickets that are waiting to be tested and deployed. It can be dozens or hundreds of changes waiting to be executed. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. So this is a stamping line. It's a picture from the 50s. And here you can see the actual physical flow of work through the factory. Each sheet of metal goes through the system following what we call a bill of routings and materials. Each piece of the product is built at a rate that matches demand. And ideally, the entire system will be built to keep up with demand. To achieve this, Dr. Ohno and Dr. Shingo, another industrial engineer at Toyota, worked together to study the routings of each of these processes and to find the bottlenecks, to find the constraints. Once they found them, they spent all of their time and energy maximizing flow through the constraint And they repeated this process again and again until the entire plant was operating at a rate equal to demand. Together, they created a process we now call the single-minute exchange of die, where they took a 3-day process and they refined it until it was 60 seconds.
This allowed Toyota to stamp parts for one Camry, then one Corolla, then another model, then another model. No longer were they stamping hundreds of hoods for one model, only to have that inventory taking up floor space and waiting on orders for that specific model. By reducing the time for each exchange of die, they reduced WIP, increased cash on hand, and reduced the time to delivery. And they did this by recognizing the 3 ways. Dr. Ono and Dr. Shingo knew that they couldn't make these improvements in a bubble. They had to consider the impact to the whole system. They created the Kanban board to improve feedback to the production line managers, giving autonomy and ownership to the workers on the production line. And finally, they enabled an impressive rate of improvement by creating a culture of experimentation, a culture that has made Toyota the manufacturing powerhouse that they are today.
The 3 ways, you can think of the 3 ways as the life cycle of software development and delivery. Systems processing tells us that we must consider the effect that every change has on the entire system before we make it. And with quality feedback loops, it gives us the opportunity to make things better through continuous improvement. Next, we'll show you how the 3 ways apply to DevOps.
So systems flow or systems processing is the practice that nothing in a production line happens in a vacuum. That we must consider the entire system end-to-end before we make changes. This is a lot easier to achieve if we deliver products one at a time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. If you've ever wondered why it takes 3 weeks for IT to do something that only takes 3 minutes, it's your queue times. If a resource or person or station is busy 30 minutes out of every hour, we say that they are 50% busy and 50% idle. In this scenario, the wait time is 50 over 50 or 1 unit of time. It could be minutes, hours, days, doesn't matter. If a resource is 90% busy, then we have 9 over 1 or 9 units of time. That poor engineer who is 90% busy means that you have to wait 9 times as long as if they were only 50% utilized.
You can think of the production environment, your development or software production environment, as a manufacturing plant. A manufacturing plant that is full of digital machines that can be linked together, just like a real physical assembly line, so that work moves from one station to the next in a continuous and sequential flow. This approach ensures that there's something always being worked on, which reduces waste, improves throughput, and improves throughput. It's a way to keep the momentum going. Just like in a well-oiled assembly line, making sure that our software is designed in a streamlined and efficient manner. I want you to think about this for a second, but most of you are probably not building actual products, the things that your customers consume, but you're building the tools that make the products.
The theory of constraints provides us with a playbook for helping us match flow through the system with the demand on that system. It also tells us how we manage bottlenecks directly affects the flow through the entire system. Bottlenecks are not necessarily a bad thing. They are simply a tool that we must manage in accordance with the goal, which makes me ask the question, what is the goal?
Good question, Don.
Thank you, Mike.
No matter what your organization is, whether it's a startup, a nonprofit, Netflix, real estate investment, there is one goal, and that is to make money. You can't operate without it. Cash is the lifeblood of every organization.
So I'm sure all of you have heard of a Kanban board by now. I have one in my office. I call it a Donbon board, but that's just me. It's one more thing we can thank Dr. Ono for. In Japanese, Kanban literally translates to signal card or note card. It was a way for the folks at each workstation to alert the rest of the production line about the status of that workstation. At Toyota, anyone on the production line could raise a problem at any time.
In fact, it was their responsibility to do so. If a part came into a station that was a little wrong or was missing something, or the workstation itself was not operating efficiently, they could change the status automatically using the Kanban system to alert everyone about issues there. Quality is everyone's job. We cannot sacrifice quality for throughput, because in the end, you'll lose both. You will lose both quality and throughput through your system. As managers, it is your job to create an environment where your people work at their natural best. Now, this doesn't mean like wringing them like a towel, right? Trying to get every last drop of water out. It means providing quality feedback based on empathy and perspective. It means providing them with the right tools and training to do the best that they can do.
Ownership and autonomy are how we show that we trust our folks doing the hard work. DevOps is about management, and managers are not in charge of the results. They are responsible for the folks in their charge. The culture must be one of empathy and perspective. And with that, we build trust between roles. That's where dev and ops really become DevOps.
Now, I know a lot of y'all weren't expecting us to get up here and talk about things like our feelings. And trust me, we wouldn't if it wasn't important. But building that trust, building these relationships, is where the dev and ops collaboration really sings. Sorry. When you can work with someone and be truly like stupid around them, right? And not feel judged about it, not be berated about it, right? Because they know that you're trying to get to smart, right? It's a sort of different kind of miracle. When organizations reach that level of trust, it enables an incredible amount of experimentation, right? You can now experiment with meaning and really find new ways to push the envelope. A few years ago, we got to watch a presentation about basically reducing start times for services. And these folks spent every sprint constantly rebuilding like a scratch Docker image, and ripping everything that they could out of the JDK to get their start times from minutes to milliseconds. They were able to do this because experimentation was encouraged in every single sprint. It's part of them. It's in their DNA.
So, now let's talk about what DevOps is not. Dun, dun, dun. There is sound to that, but it only comes out down here, so we had to improvise. You may have noticed that not once while we were providing a definition of DevOps did we use the terms Kubernetes or cloud or Terraform or scripting or AI, containers, because that's not what DevOps is. In fact, I've got a little analogy here that will kind of explain what's happening to DevOps as a term in the modern workplace. Parkour! Maybe some of you got that, maybe not, I hope. In every interview I've conducted over the last 6 years, I've always ended the interview with the same question. And the question is, describe it's not a question, but describe DevOps to me in your own words. And 9 out of 10 candidates go straight to automation, CI/CD pipelines, observability, but they focus way more on the tools and things like containers, not the culture or the philosophy. And as we all know, anytime someone answers that question wrong, a unicorn loses its horn.
Some of you more experienced folks in the room might recognize this sort of pattern as the eternal September. Because in the beginning, DevOps was pure. It was a thing. And then every year, it seems like more and more stuff gets added to it. We got DevSecOps, DevBizOps, DevNetOps, DevNetSecBizOps, right?
This is where we're headed. And this is actually a German word that means bullshit.
Seriously, I'm not going to name the company. I'm not going to shame anybody today. But I saw a job posting the other day. It was for a principal network DevOps architect. I have no idea what that means.
So now let's talk about the DevOps engineer.
I don't really know how you engineer a philosophy or an applied science, but the pay's probably good, right?
Yeah. So if you're a DevOps engineer, how many in the audience do we have today that have a DevOps engineer title? Okay, quite a few. All right, good deal.
Sorry in advance.
You probably have a pretty good salary. You probably get to do some pretty cool things sometimes. You're definitely not ops unless you are, and you're definitely not a dev unless you are. You probably do spend a lot of time focusing on automation, and because you're in DevOps, you also believe that unicorns are real. So at least the unicorns have stopped kicking everything over.
Well, mostly anyways.
We've got some bad news for the DevOps engineers.
We do have some bad news for the DevOps engineers.
You guys probably aren't going to like it, but bear with us for just a second, okay? All right.
Hang on, hang on.
All right. It didn't mean what you thought it meant, did it? So, I'm stealing your line. Go ahead.
Okay. The DevOps engineer simply shouldn't exist.
As a title.
As a title, yes.
All right. Well, now that we've angered all the DevOps engineers in the room and all the SREs in the room, well, let's just go ahead and move on.
Yeah.
We're going to stop. We promise.
Yeah. No, we're not. So we talked a little bit about what DevOps is. We talked a little bit about what DevOps is not. Who is DevOps for? Everyone. If you're in business, it's for you, right? I like to put the customers first in the whole DevOps chain because without demand from the market, we simply don't have a business. And demand from the market is one of the most crucial things that we have to keep up with. The next thing on that list is quality assurance, or QA. QA and the engineers and technicians that perform all of our quality assurance testing and processes and stuff like that are absolutely vital to DevOps. They are the last line of defense between us and our customers. They are there to protect our customers from us. And in that, we have to support them.
Project managers and business managers, you're responsible for providing the strategy, and now your strategy can be rooted in the science of DevOps instead of in buzzwords. Even the sales team has a part in DevOps. Their purpose is to increase demand from the market. It's all up to the engineers to make sure that the flow through the system is aligned with the demand from the market. And I mean all of the engineers. Systems engineers, software engineers, security, data, network, so on. So, I guess we'll wrap all this up.
We're already here? Wow.
Yeah, I know. DevOps. It's not a person, team, organization, or position.
It is not a noun. It is not a noun.
It's a cultural shift towards collaboration and automation. It's something that all companies want to be doing, but few have the resolve to actually commit to. At the end of the day, most of the companies who are using the term DevOps the way that they are, they're going to continue to do so.
It's a collection of applied sciences, collection of philosophies, right? It's the culmination of decades of work and research and writings and presentations like this one, right? Based around ideas of single piece flow, single process, systems processing, and the rest. It includes everyone, right? Everyone has a role to play in this, right? And you have to recognize your role and you have to be willing to be a part of that. DevOps is not defined by your tools. None of this is new, right? None of these processes or these policies or the philosophies and stuff like that are new. They've been around for a long time. The only thing that has changed is the tools. The tools cannot define the process, or they have to support it.
So this requires ongoing effort and experimentation. Every team I've ever led since way back when I was a developer at my very first startup, we've always had in the team charter the term or the phrase, fail fast, fail fearlessly. Don't be afraid to try new things. Experiment as much as you can. We would build time into every sprint for it. It's how we as humans, learn best, and it enables rapid change. Software design and delivery are digital assembly lines. Our hope is that we've inspired you to learn more about real DevOps so you can help contribute to driving change in your organization, getting them to adopt the culture, not just another tool. If even one of you in the audience takes away from this the need to push forward and get culture adopted at your workplace, then we've done our job.
Even with all of this knowledge, even having a view of the history of it, it will take an incredible amount of discipline to pull it off correctly. Lots and lots of discipline.
Just remember, someday somebody's going to ask you to describe DevOps in your own words, and you don't want to be the reason another unicorn loses its horn. So, we said there was going to be homework. Don't worry, we're not going to grade you on it or anything.
But we do have a reading list for you. Everything that we've talked about today can be found in these books. There's a few others that we wanted to put on here, but we felt like this was already long enough for most people.
Yeah, so we'll leave it up for a sec so everybody can get a picture if they need it. But yeah, do your homework and trust the awesomeness. And thank you. If we've got like 1 second, we also have a poem that was written by ChatGPT when we asked it to summarize our talk in the form of a poem, and I think we have exactly 1 minute.
All right.
Do you guys want to hear it?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, go for it.
A poem by ChatGPT. DevOps wants a term so neat. Each year a word they'd add and repeat. From DevSecOps to Biz, a growing chain. A bastardized word, what does it contain? A buzzword now, lost in the fray, yet we still use it every single day.
And we also have a haiku written by ChatGPT. DevOps grows each year. Words attach without a care, meaning lost, beware. All right, well, thank you so much. We were so glad to be here. I hope you got something. We'll be around the rest of the conference, so if you want to chat, come find us. Thank you.